What's going on, guys? Got your local ham sandwich here, bringing you my Fiendsmith Chimera deck profile here for the September 2024 Banlist format. It's not Centurion, it's not even a Synchro deck, but it is probably my next deck of choice behind Centurion or White Forest Centurion, any of those. So I figure, especially since there's a lot of gameplay videos going up on the channel, that I would bring you a deck profile for those interested. So we're going to jump into this here. Definitely make sure you leave a like if you like the video, comment anything you like about the deck profile going forward, and subscribe if you like the content. We're going to go into the monsters now. If I'm going to do a cutaway, I'll just grab the cards here. Now the monster lineup for engine is pretty standard. We've got, for the illusions, we've got 3 Apprentice, 3 Codal, opting for 2 Mirror Sword, and then of course the 1 Tau and the 1 Diabels. I don't have the rarity upgrades from the tins just yet, those are still in the mail. But in terms of illusions, I think this is pretty standard. Some lists opt for 2 Apprentice, 3 Mirror Sword, but I think 3 Apprentice is a little better just because you have so many normal summons in this deck. So really, you can opt for either way. You can also just opt for 3 and 3 if you have the room. This is a 45 card list, so I'm trying to cut down cards at least a little bit so I can not have too many cards in the deck. There are a lot of one-ofs, so running more than 40 is fine. For our beasts in the main deck, we've only got the 3 Gazelle. One of your best starters now. You really want to see Gazelle more than anything. Cornfield Codal most often is going to search Gazelle. Mirror Sword more than likely is going to tribute itself into Gazelle more than Baphomet, just because Baphomet is going to fusion lock you. Baphomet's really like a later in the combo type of deal, because it fusion locks you and you're playing Fiendsmith, so half your extra is not just fusions. But otherwise, these are pretty standard ratios even for like a non-Fiendsmith build. If you're not playing Fiendsmith, probably run 3 Mirror Sword just to maximize here. But only thing is, like, maybe you can argue putting Diabels in the side deck versus the main deck, but it's probably your best main deck floodgate, and it's the easiest one to get to, really. So Apprentice can search it, Gazelle can search it. Obviously, if you already have it, Tau can bring it back very easily. Baphomet can bring it back, and Baphomet Fusion can dump it very easily. So you have just a lot of ways to get to it. For our stuff up here, for our non-Chimera engine, we have 2 Edgent Chain. Also pretty standard. You can opt not to run it, but I think in this deck you want an abundance of fusion spells, so having the Frightfur package with polymerization and whatnot is really good, and plus Nightmare Apprentice plus Edgent Chain is a really good combo. And then for our Fiendsmith engine, only running 2 Engraver, you only really need 2 in this deck. You can put out enough bodies to get to other Light Fiends pretty easily, the 1 Lurie, of course. And then, of course, the Evil Hero package, the Sinister Necrom, and the Dusted Gold. Again, Sinister Necrom also very easy to get to. It's a level 5 Fiend, so Gazelle can search it. Both Aerial Leader and Baphomet are going to dump it very, very easily. Typically, Sinister Necrom is probably your first choice to dump off of Baphomet, so you have your extender into a Dusted Gold. So for that reason alone, you only really need the 2 Fiendsmith Engraver. You already have your, basically a Dusted Gold is almost like your quote-unquote third Fiendsmith Engraver. So pretty standard. And then for the last of the monsters, I'm just running 2 Fenrir. I'm a little bit wishy-washy about Fenrir in this deck, but it's more fusion material for something like Guardian Chimera, or more link material if you need it. And also, it's just an oppressive body on its own. And in some cases, if you draw only Fenrir and Baphomet, you can just special Fenrir and then normal summon Baphomet if entirely possible or necessary. That's going to do it for the monsters. No monster-based hand traps in this deck, going for more of a board breaker build. I think this deck can run a lot better with just board breakers, especially triple attack, which you'll see here in a moment. Looking at the spells, look at the fusion spells first. Standard 3 Chimera Fusion, never play less than 3. 3 Frightfur Patchwork. This way you can argue playing at 2 and just have every part of the package be at 2. I'm a little bit back and forth on that, but I think having 3 is fine. just maybe be a brick sometimes, and then the 2 polymerization to go with it. And then your last engine spell, Fiendsmith Tract, just the 1 of, again, to get you into Lurry very easily. You don't play, or at least I don't play Desiree in this list, so the fusion summoning effect doesn't really do anything. Then for our non-engine spells, this is where most of our breakers are at. So we've got 3 Droplet, 3 Book of Eclipse, 2 Triple Tack, and the 1 Called By. As of last night, I'm a bit iffy on Book of Eclipse. It's good in practice just because if you have a normal summon, it's in no other extension. Getting that normal summon impermed is a little bit bad, or Veilered too. So Book of Eclipse can help you there, and also against some like Xyz decks or Link decks. It can be very disruptive, but you have to be very careful about when you flip it, because it can turn off some of your disruptions on your side of the field too. So a bit back and forth on it. But in theory, it's good. Droplet, of course, always a good card. Not a lot of generic N-word pieces now that Droplet wants to hit, but still some good ones, like Wave King Caesar is a really big one just because it can shut off Chimera Fusion. And if they're playing Desiree, Desiree is also quite bad for this deck. I would honestly bump Triple Tack to 3. I think in this deck especially, Triple Tack is very good because it's very susceptible to hand traps, so you want to fight back on that. And also, if you can extend through hand traps, you can get at least 2 hand rips with Chimera King and this. Then just going to keep these here and go for our traps. We have the 3 Imperm for the last cards of the deck. Again, going for a board breaker approach, but Imperm is still sort of like a 1-for-1 in terms of hand traps. If you only see Imperm, you can hold it for their end board. And Imperm, their most problematic piece, again, like a Wave King Caesar or a Desiree or something like that. Or if your opponent just has like a Chaos Age you can't get over, you can Droplet or Imperm for that as well. But 45 cards for the main deck. Again, probably want to adjust a couple ratios on the board breakers, but overall I think the deck is doing very good. Just the combos are kind of long-winded and maybe a bit complicated at sometimes, so sometimes I will just forget them, but that's on me. So for the extra deck, I'm running 2 Guardian Chimera, then the Chimera the Illusion, Chimera King, and 2 Baphomet. The Guardian Chimera, I just had 1 extra slot, so I put in the second one. You can get by with 1 just fine, but in theory, if you grind fast or grind far enough, the second one does come up. Once we get Duke of Demise, I think that'll just be the extra slot there. And then for the non-Chimera fusions, we got the Magnum the Reliever, which is kind of a Chimeric fusion, kind of standard into these lists, and then your 2 Fiendsmith fusions, at least honorarily, Necroquip and Aerial Leader. Again, no Desiree, of course Lockroom is banned, but these are both very good. In some combos you can often go for Necroquip and Fiendsmith to bait a Nibiru, and if they Nibiru you there, you can play through it. If they don't have it, you can go further into sequence. It's really good. For our Link package, I've got Muckraker. Again, sometimes in combos you want, or you may have to go for Aerial Leader dump Baphomet, and then Muckraker bring it back if you have only Fiendsmith cards. And then, of course, for Fiendsmith, Moon, Sequence, Requiem, pretty standard. Nothing to change there. Again, if I was going to run an extra Link monster, maybe SP if I could manage it. But I think these are all pretty standard for Chimera here. And then Chaos Angel and Wave King, again for Fiendsmith for the Wave King, and then Chaos Angel is just very easy to make in this deck. You got your Mirror Swords and your Adjusted Cold as your lights. Edge Imp Chain is also level 4, so you can go for a double dark Chaos Angel, go Edge Imp Chain, Nightmare Apprentice. So it's just really good in this deck, and honestly Snake Eye just has a really bad problem getting over it. You don't really want to go for it against Yugioh unless you can get rid of their Nightmare Pain. But that's it for the extra deck. Again, the only change, probably that second Guardian Chimera is a flex spot there, maybe an additional Link monster like an SP. And then in terms of our side deck here, I am side decking Nibiru. Nibiru is one that I maybe would put in the main deck, or maybe remove the Fenrir's and put in Nibiru just because it's so good against Snake Eye. But we'll see. The same goes for the Bestials. I've got the one Magnemite, and then these two sleeves are for the Druisworm, but the Druisworms are in a different deck now. Again, also very good against Fiendsmith stuff like Yugioh and Snake Eye. Might be worth maining them over like the Fenrir. But for now, just because I've got so many options, I just put them in the side deck. A lot of the times I will side out Fenrir for them, depending on the matchup. And then the last monster in the side deck is the Wonghu, very good for Yubel. Can also be very good against Snake Eye if they don't have the Temple. Because as soon as they normal summon Snake Eye Ash, its effect would go through, but Wonghu would destroy it, so they can go get Ash, get Poplar, they'd both be destroyed. They wouldn't be able to extend through it. But mostly it's there for Yubel. Could also come up in some matchups, like Sprite or some other matchups that have lower attack point monsters. For the spells, we're only running 3 Cosmic. I think Cosmic is mandatory, especially with Tenpai running around and Yubel running around. All their power spells, they're at 1. If you can hit them, it's really good. It's also good for Centurion. If you have anyone in Centurion that's your locals, stand-up could be hit by Cosmic Cyclone. And then the traps, we got 2 D-Barrier, mostly for Tenpai, but sometimes for those like Seize decks. Or sometimes branded if it's my last resort. And then 3 Evenly Match. I think Evenly Match is just incredible right now. There's not a lot of negates for it. But for the side deck, I think probably D-Barrier is up for contention in terms of changes. The Barrier going to the main for sure, I think. But overall, pretty decent. I think D-Barrier is probably just one I just don't really like. I would probably run Judgment over D-Barriers for your most generic going first card. But that's it for the side deck. I'm going to jump into a couple of your most standard combos here. Okay, so for one of our most basic combos here, we've got Gazelle plus Codal and a discard. Codal could also be, or I guess Gazelle could also be Mirror Sword because Codal would just search the other one. So normally I would think I would always start with Gazelle, search for Chimera Fusion. If they droll you on that, it depends on your entire hand, but you've still got your 1 fusion spell, so I would always prioritize Gazelle search if you have Gazelle. If Codal is your only search and you go for Gazelle and they roll you, then that stinks. You kind of have to hope you already have Polymerization or Chimera Fusion in hand, which isn't always the case, but that's why you get to play a lot of them. But anyway, if going for Codal search next, we would grab the Mirror Sword, and then we just go for Chimera Fusion for those 2. 2 Baphomet, and we go Gazelle 1, Baphomet 2. So you would grab your Nightmare Apprentice and you would dump Sinister Necrom. Again, I think Necrom is always your most favored dump off of that. And then before you do anything else, I'll just go ahead and add back the Chimera Fusion. And then I'm going to use our discard to special Nightmare Apprentice, Apprentice Search, and the Illusion. This is where we would grab our Diabell. And then this is where we would go Fiendsmith line. Now that is already 3 summons, so they can, in theory, Nibiru you during this. However, Moon. However, since you've got Necrom in Grave, there's Requiem, these are soft screen, and you've got Diabells in hand plus Chimera Fusion, you can technically set it up so you can still make another Baphomet, and you've got your 2 negates on the end board, or in the graveyard. Graver, Quick Requiem. This is very standard Fiendsmith attire, or affair rather, that's the word. So not a whole lot to explain here. Necro Equip, put back the Requiem, special the Fiendsmith. And then again, this is where they would need to Nibiru you. Again, they can Nibiru you during that, but it's the same idea. If they have Nibiru, they have to drop it here because you're threatening Wave King Caesar. But if they don't have it, then you can just go these two into the sequence, and then you go sequence 1, chain Chimera Fusion. We'll use Diabel and sequence in hand for Magnum, and then sequence we'll go for 2 Light Fiends. You want to put itself back in Moon in this case for Aerial Eater effect, dumping our Big Winged Furfamet, and then we'll go for Sinister Necron here. 1 extra body. You could use Magnum, but I think holding Magnum for an extra negate is fine. Again, personal preference. Our 2 bodies there. Muckraker. I've just not framed this correctly. We are going to need an extra discard for Muckraker, so assume you already have one other card in your hand, which you do, because you want to start with a 5-card hand. Muckraker. Target the Big Winged Furfamet. Discard your 1 card. Furfamet effect. Grab our Gazelle and our Chimera Fusion. And then what you can also do with Magnum here is, since you've already spent the 2 uses of this Chimera Fusion in grave, you can put it back and refund one of your discards here. So, and then we have one more card in hand from our starter there. So what you're ending on here is a very easy Chimera or Guardian Chimera line, plus the Magnum negate once you use, or Magnum pop rather, once you use Chimera Fusion, and whatever else you have in your hand. In hindsight, I think I may have screwed up that line. You actually do want to use Magnum, or you can use Magnum to make Muckraker, because you can use Aerial Leader if you leave Necrocrypt on board. Use Aerial Leader to make Necrocrypt and Aerial Leader into Late King Caesar. But sometimes you have to be smarter than I am. But that is one of the very simple combos there. Okay, and for one of our other standard combos here, Codal plus Patchwork. This can also be Gazelle plus Patchwork. Or if you've already got, this would be 3 card, but if you already got Edgem Chain and Polymerization in hand, same thing. So we're going to start here with Codal. To grab our Gazelle, and then we're going to go Patchwork. Grab our Chain and our Polymerization. And then what we're going to do is we're not even going to normal summon. We're going to save our normal summon here. We're just going to fire Polymerization. And in this case, you'll want to go for Chimera King. So we'll go Gazelle 1, Chain 2, Chimera 3. So we'll get another Patchwork. And wherever she may be, Apprentice. And that's going to give you an automatic discard for your Apprentice there. So we'll go Apprentice, and we'll grab your Sword Knight, and then we're just going to go full Fiendsmith combo here. Just going to turbo through it. If you don't know the Fiendsmith combo by now, I'm sorry. It's pretty simple. So in this case, we haven't used our normal summon yet. So what we can do is we can just incite the rest of our plays. Again, I think this is more than 5 summons, so if they didn't mirror you, it's okay, you got normal summon. We're going to go Caesar just to insulate our board, and then we'll normal summon Mirror Sword. Go for Mirror Sword. And we will grab Berfomet, which is going to get us Chimera Fusion and Gazelle. And then we will fire the Chimera Fusion. Go for Fusion Berfomet. We will go Berfomet Engrave 1, target Mirror Sword, and Fusion Berfomet 2. So we get our Mirror Sword back. We get to dump our Diabels. She is. And then we'll add back Chimera Fusion, and we'll set it. And we can pass on that. And then during the opponent's draw phase, we can go for Mirror Sword. We can get our big winged Berfomet. Berfomet effect once more. Chimera Fusion in hand plus the Gazelle. So now you've got obviously your two Wave King Caesar negates. Both of your Chimera negates are online. You got Gazelle, you've got Mirror Sword. And in this case, you've got Chimera King in the graveyard, so you can you don't have to hold back on going for your Guardian Chimera. You can do it rather quickly if you so need to, using these three monsters. Because Chimera King can just revive Berfomet on the opponent's turn for those two negates to still be live. So really, what we're looking at here is if we were to go Chimera Fusion, we would get these three engrave, and we would get our Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera would net us one draw. We would get follow-up off of Gazelle and our Nightmare Apprentice, and then we would also get Diabels out of the graveyard. I used the wrong Chimera Fusion there, but you get the idea. And then we can almost immediately, I would say, Chimera banish itself, put in here, to put our Gazelle negates back online. So now the opponent has to contend with, they've already lost 2 cards on board with Guardian Chimera. They still have to contend with our 2 negates off of this, the Diabel's Floodgate, which can be very important, and the 2 special summon negates. And we've got all kinds of follow-up here with the 1 draw and the Chimera Fusion. So that's also a very powerful combo. Again, with this deck, there's a lot of cards. Some of the combos, you can just see some of your 1 cards, like if you see Mirror Codal or only Mirror Sword, you kind of just want to go for the standard line. If you see Fiendsmith, sometimes you want to go Fiendsmith line first, just to bait out hand traps and whatnot. But overall, pretty versatile. It can actually play through hand traps very well. So I think playing board breakers it's kind of the same idea. Going second, you can break a board and play through a partial board versus a full board. But only got those, I think, 12 or so board breakers in the deck. So at 45, you're not always going to see 2. You kind of want to see 2 in most cases. But still pretty powerful. And I really like it. It was my main deck before Centurion came out, so it's got a good place in my heart. It's going to get even better with Azamina out of Rhoda. So I think it's still very powerful. In terms of just viability right now, it's obviously not the best Fiendsmith deck. It's probably the 4th best behind Yugioh, Snake Eye, probably even Magical Musket. But of course, Fiendsmith can go in mostly anything now. But overall, that's the deck profile. There's some combos for you. Make sure you drop a like below if you liked the video. Drop me comments you have on other deck tech choices you enjoy in this deck. Any other decks you'd like to see. Don't worry, new Centurion content is coming. That's going to be the next deck profile coming out a week after this one. And then, of course, once Rhoda comes out and we get Primera Primus, that will also bring us a lot of good content there. So like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, and I will see you guys in the next video.